We are back now on the show to talk about something that has kind of gone over our heads a little bit here on the show, and that's the pending return of Tua Tagovailoa from his latest concussion. Obviously suffered in Week 2 against the Buffalo Bills, a very scary sight again, right? Because it is his third concussion, I believe, and the way that he went down again, the way that he reacted once he was down, and just that the idea that this could be happening again to Tua was very scary to see. Was very unfortunate to see for Tua and the Dolphins organization, right? Obviously having to deal with that and seeing a player that they drafted go through that again is not good for anybody, right? So that was about a month or so ago, and now after the time being where he was placed on the IR and now that time is up after the 4 weeks, the Dolphins officially activated him off of the IR, and head coach Mike McDaniel said, I believe last week, that he does expect Tua to play again in 2024. So over the last month or 2.5 months, we were going to see Tua again. It was just a matter of when. But now, starting on Monday, head coach Mike McDaniel again told the reporters that Tua will return to practice today with a goal to play against the Arizona Cardinals this upcoming Sunday in Week 8. McDaniel stated that the medical experts have deemed it be they deemed it that it was safe for Tua to return to practice after I'm sure a lot of tests were done on Tua and just continuing to monitor his progress. According to Mike McDaniel, he said that the medical experts said it was okay for Tua to return, and he also has not officially cleared concussion protocol. He still has to do all of that, but he can't do that unless he returns to practice. So today was supposed to be his first day. I don't think anything went wrong. So I'm assuming that he was there, and over the next, few days leading up into Sunday, I'm sure he's going to go through the protocol and try to pass the protocol so he's able to play this upcoming Sunday. And it seems like, I don't know if it's just me, it feels like only like 3 weeks ago, 2 weeks ago that I saw Tua get hurt. It doesn't feel like a month at all. But apparently it obviously has been that, and now this is becoming a possibility after all the talk of other people commenting on whether or not he should retire or whether or not the Dolphins should let him play. Should they let him come back? Should Tua just think about his long-term health and all those things? All of that stuff is personal, pretty much, and it was always going to be up to Tua, obviously. So I gave my thoughts on it, but I never felt like Tua, the way that he is, the way that he carries himself around the game of football, and how much his family is invested in it. I never got the sense that he was really thinking about retiring. And after this latest concussion, it wasn't a feeling or a vibe that I got from Tua just from the things that were said about him or him really not saying too much on it. I feel like it would have made more noise if he was actually thinking of retiring. So with all that being the case, now we're here, right? Now we're at the moment where he has just one more hurdle to get over before we do see him back on a football field. And Tua also spoke on Monday, and he had some interesting things to say of just his thoughts on his giving his comments about what this return could be like for him. And after a month of just resting and reportedly meeting with several neurologists to determine the viability of his return, Tua said that all of them cleared him to continue playing. So that was to be expected, right? When he got up off the field, it wasn't like he was too groggy. He looked a little bit lightheaded, but everybody knew that he was gonna pass the test. He was gonna pass the protocols and everything like that. It was just more so, again, a personal decision by Tua on whether or not he wanted to run the risk of this happening once again and how that could affect him, long term. Obviously, it's nothing to take serious, but obviously Tua is here now, and he said that he never considered retiring despite seeing all the stuff and all the opinions said over the last month or so about him and his career. He also mentioned how he was actually symptom free since the day after the concussion, after that Bills game. So that's a good sign. Obviously, it wasn't that serious, like I said, just from looking at it through the television. But according to Tua himself, he said that there was no symptoms just a day after. Also, he said that he wouldn't be wearing a Guardian cap. That was another question that was asked on Monday from one of the media members. And I think they also brought it up because his fellow teammate, Devon Achane, also had a concussion that he was dealing with. And this past week, he wore a Guardian cap when he made his return from a concussion. But, Tua said that he wouldn't be wearing a Guardian cap because it was a personal choice not to wear it. And I think that just says a lot about him anyway, of how much, he wasn't going to retire, basically, because if he's not even going to wear a Guardian cap and really not, consider any of these other methods, maybe like changing his helmet or anything like that, to maybe prevent this from happening again, it just fuels the idea more that he was never really going to retire. He almost like embraces the fact that, this is a dangerous sport, but almost in a way saying like he doesn't really care. He loves it so much that he's willing to do this yet again. So he said it was a personal choice not to wear a Guardian cap. Also mentioning that he didn't pay attention to anyone's opinion on his health, but he did thank most of the people and all the people that genuinely asked and cared about how he was doing health-wise. So, that was a nice gesture. And he just also said that he has to be smarter playing going forward, right? Maybe considering those hits he could take or sliding a different way or maybe not running as much. He overall said that he has to play smarter and that he doesn't obviously want to be known for these concussions, for this reputation that he has built up, unfortunately, for the 3 concussions that he has had up until this point. But he does accept and is at peace pretty much with the fact that, in his own words, these are the cards that I've been dealt. So it seems like he's not tormenting himself too much over that. And the last thing he said was really interesting to me, because he said that basically there's risk in everything. He said that from waking up, from driving, from everybody in the NFL basically running the risk of getting hurt on any play, on any given Sunday, just playing for your team, just going through your normal day. But if something goes terribly wrong, everybody runs the risk. It's not just him. And he finished it off by saying, there's just risk in any and everything. I'm willing to play the odds on that. So, again, it was a pretty cool quote to say. He's going to play the odds. He's going to take the risk because that's how much he loves the game of football. And he also brought up something else about how people don't consider boxers in the same breath, because they also have to do a very serious job, right? Risking their lives going out there, or hockey players doing a lot of the same thing. And it makes sense what he's saying, but also I think more so with boxing, you kind of subconsciously accept the fact that these guys are just wailing on each other. Even in the UFC as well, there is that potential with how some of these hard-hitting hits, punches, and kicks, sort of land on their opponents. But with football, you don't really acknowledge it too much to kind of, push back on his point, because it hasn't really happened too often. Yes, it is a violent game, but it doesn't really happen to this degree that it has happened to Tua, unfortunately. And also, it's very context-based, right? It could be taken very seriously for maybe Tua, but for other players, maybe not so much. And it might not seem fair for Tua, but that's just, how it is. Not everybody takes the same sort of hit the same way. Some people react differently from it. Fortunately for others, they're not really affected too much by it. And, it's all just based on each and every individual. So, it is what it is now. Tua is going to play again in 2024. Whether or not he makes it this week is a whole other thing, but it won't be long before we see him yet again. But now my question is, with Tua, how much is he really going to help out this Dolphins team, right? Because they've been looking really bad with the fact that Tua has gone out. And some people will say that, that's their fault also for not being prepared or having a good backup for when and if Tua ever got hurt again. Because really looking at this Dolphins team, they are last in the NFL in points per game. They've lost their last 3 out of their last 4 games, and they're 2-4 right now. And Tua will certainly help, coming off of this concussion, obviously, assuming that he can just pick it up right where he left off. But to push back on that point, on the Dolphins maybe not really having a bigger jump with Tua coming back than most people think. They haven't been so bad, defensively especially. They're top 4 in yards allowed per game, and they also have allowed the least amount of passing yards per game. So with that being the case and kind of showing both sides of the argument, you could just be thinking if they had a better quarterback, and especially Tua, who knows this system in and out, it would give them a lot better chance to maybe beat the Colts, to maybe beat or be in a closer game against the Seahawks or whatnot. It's these close games that Dolphins fans, I'm sure, definitely feel they could have won, or at least have been given a better chance if they had their quarterback. But with this now going forward and them being 2-4, it is going to help. But who they have, coming up on their schedule certainly will play a factor in ultimately what happens with Tua and what I think should happen with this organization. And we just finished talking about the Rams maybe calling it a little bit early on their season just because the record sort of suggests that they're not going to come back from that deficit. And the Dolphins find themselves in the same thing, because to me, if this team goes to 2-5, it would raise serious questions and concerns to me about the fact that maybe you just, again, I don't like saying that you just quit and throw away this season, but just maybe you start thinking about the years to come, and maybe you start planning on other ways to improve this team for 2025, because Mike McDaniel is not going anywhere. He signed an extension, and if Tua is able to stay healthy, he's not going anywhere. He just got signed to a whole lot of money. Maybe if you go to 2-5 or 2-6 over your next 2 games, you start thinking about maybe just saying to Tua, like, hey, you know what, this season it's just not there. Why don't you just focus on your health? We don't want to risk you getting hurt in these meaningless games that could affect you long term. I would consider telling Tua that and kind of sitting him the rest of the year if this team goes to 2-4. Just again, because you're 2-4, these games won't really mean anything if you're not going to get into the playoffs, and you don't want to have Tua out there, especially coming off of this latest concussion, just taking hits for no reason. Now, I don't think they should sell like Tyreek Hill or Jalen Waddle or trade them at the trade deadline. But it is just a very delicate situation to kind of monitor over the next couple of weeks. I believe, if they drop this next game to the Cardinals and maybe lose again to the Bills, then it's starting to become a little bit dire at that point. So I would feel like it would just be unnecessary to have Tua out there. With the medical reasons, obviously, I would consider sitting him down if they lose at most 2 or definitely 3 more games. I would just tell Tua, it's great that you came back. We appreciate it. We want to keep you as healthy as possible. Let's just sit you down and reevaluate everything at the end of the year. That's how I would feel about it. Because, again, the last thing you'd want to do is for anybody to go through that again in games that really don't mean much. That would really be the last straw, I would assume. So, but in the meantime, Tua is, if I were to guess, he is probably going to play this week. I feel like everything is kind of trending that way. So we will see Tua. We'll see how much of a difference it makes and how that will affect the plan going forward. But that is all on Tua. That is all in this segment. We have a couple more to get to on today's show, recapping our last game of Week 7, because I had to mention the Seahawks getting a big win over the Atlanta Falcons, stopping a 3-game losing streak that they were on. And also, in the last segment, we're going to start previewing some of the Week 8 games, starting with the Sunday Night Football game between the Cowboys and the 49ers. A must-watch game that we're going to talk about in just a few seconds. Don't go anywhere.